What if your water and power are not run for you anymore? What if they are run for profit? This is not a wild idea. It is happening right now, quietly, in boardrooms far from your home. The lights in your house, the water from your tap, the very foundations of your daily life are being turned into assets. For generations, public works were just that. Public. Your grandparents, great-grandparents paid taxes to build the pipes, wires, roads that formed the backbone of your community. These were seen as a shared inheritance. They were managed by local governments with the goal of providing reliable, affordable services for everyone. The engineers, workers, were often your neighbors. The board members were elected officials who had to face voters. If there was a problem, you knew who to call. The system was designed for public accountability, even if it wasn't always perfect. It was built for the long term. This model began to change a few decades ago. The idea spread that private companies could do things better, supposedly more efficient, more innovative, and free from political interference. Governments, often facing budget shortfalls, were tempted by this argument. They were also tempted by the large, one-time cash payments that came from selling off a utility, so they began to sell. How does a private firm buy a multi-billion-dollar utility? It rarely uses its own money. Instead, it uses a technique called a leveraged buyout. The firm borrows a huge amount of money to finance the purchase. What is the collateral for this massive loan? It is the utility itself, the company you rely on for water, the company you rely on power. This debt is not the responsibility of the new private owner. It is loaded onto the books of the utility. Suddenly, your local water company owes billions to banks. The money is owed to bondholders. This debt has to be paid back, with interest, and that money comes from one place, your monthly bill. This is why rate hikes are an almost inevitable consequence. The utility must generate revenue to cover operating costs, to pay for maintenance, and to make massive interest payments to its lenders. On top of that, it must still produce a profit for its new owners. That pressure creates an incentive to raise prices and to cut costs wherever possible. The promise of private sector efficiency often masks a business model built on debt. But extraction of wealth doesn't stop there. After purchase, owners can use a dividend recapitalization. The private owner forces the utility to take on more debt. The loan money is not used to upgrade pipes or to modernize the power grid. Instead, it is paid out directly to the owners as a one-time dividend. Owners get a massive cash payout. The utility is left with a bigger pile of debt. When profit becomes the primary driver, something has to give. In the world of private utilities, that something is often maintenance. The pipes under your streets, the wires over your head, require constant upkeep and eventual replacement. This is a long-term, expensive commitment. For a private owner focused on a 3 to 5 year investment horizon, deferring maintenance to cut costs and boost short-term profits. Why spend millions on a water main that will last 50 years when you plan to sell in 4? Delayed repairs have real-world consequences. More frequent water main breaks that flood streets. More homes left without service. More power outages as aging equipment fails. Bayonne, New Jersey. Privatized system. Residents reported discolored water and service disruptions linked to cost cutting. These are not just inconveniences. They are symptoms of a system being bled for cash. Short-term investor gains, long-term risks and costs for the community. Communities will eventually have to pay to fix neglected infrastructure. Bills go up, debt payments, profit expectations create pressure to increase revenue. The private utility can often raise rates with little resistance. Regulators underfunded, regulators lacking authority to block hikes. Customers have no alternative. You cannot choose a different water company. You simply have to pay what they charge. Water bills doubling or tripling within years after a takeover. Money is not going to better service. It's servicing debt and paying dividends to distant owners. A stark conflict: private owner goals versus public needs. Community needs reliable, safe, affordable services. When a city or town sells its utility, it is not just selling pipes and wires. It is signing a contract. These contracts are often long, complex legal documents, negotiated behind closed doors. They are designed by corporate lawyers to protect the interests of the private owner above all else. Within these pages are clauses that can effectively strip a community of its power to govern its own essential services. Elected officials may discover, too late, that their hands are tied. The contract they signed has given away their authority for decades to come. One of the most powerful tools in these agreements is the lock-in clause. These provisions make it financially impossible for a city to take back control of its utility, even if the private operator is providing terrible service or charging outrageous rates. The contract might specify an astronomical buyout price, calculated not on the actual value of the assets, but on the company's projected future profits. This penalty can be so high that no city could afford to pay it. The community is trapped in a bad deal for 50 years, 75 years, or even 99 years. The contract overrules the will of the people and their elected leaders. Furthermore, these contracts can limit a local government's ability to regulate. A city council might want to pass a new rule to protect water quality or require better storm preparedness from the electric company. But the contract may state that any new regulation that reduces the company's profit is a breach of contract. The company could then sue the city for millions in lost revenue. This has a chilling effect on public oversight. Fearing costly legal battles, local officials may simply stop trying to hold the company accountable. The private contract effectively becomes a higher law than local ordinances. The issue of control becomes even more critical when the owner is a foreign-backed fund. The quiet takeover of our public services is not unstoppable. Across the nation, people are waking up to what has been lost, and they are starting to fight back. The good news is that there are clear, concrete steps citizens and governments can take to reclaim control. The first and most powerful step is to demand transparency. We have a right to know who owns our water. We have a right to know who owns our power. Push for laws that tear down offshore secrecy and reveal beneficial owners. Without this basic information, accountability is impossible. Demand public audits and oversight of private contracts. Communities should have the right to review the terms of any deal. Communities should have the right to see the company's books. Public audits can expose the mountains of debt loaded onto our utilities. Public audits can show exactly where our money is going. Is it being reinvested in our infrastructure, or being siphoned off to pay investors? Armed with this information, we can challenge unfair rate hikes and demand better service. Movements are growing to pressure banks and investment funds to stop financing extractive deals. Where possible, communities are exploring remunicipalization. That means bringing privatized services back under public ownership and control. It is not easy, especially when cities are locked into punitive contracts. But it is happening. From Paris, France, to cities in the United States, communities are finding legal pathways and financial pathways to reclaim their commons. They have decided essential services like water and power are too important to be run for profit. They are choosing to put people before investors.